When St. Joseph's was expanded to its present size in the 1860s, it was the largest church in St. Louis. Over the next century, the Jesuit priests continued to staff and operate the parish.
One time they had 5 priests assigned here, and they would fill this. Originally, the church sat 1,200 people. Today it only seats 1,000 because some pews have been removed. But and they would fill this 5 times on Sunday. And they even had a chapel that's located beneath the altar that sat about 200 people. And when they would fill this, they would move the people down to the chapel to see the...
While the 1860s saw St. Joseph's as a beacon of light and vitality, it was the 1960s when St. Joseph's finally began to wither and fall apart. Less than a dozen blocks away from St. Joseph's, the St. Louis riverfront was beginning its own renaissance. The Gateway Arch would loom over the city as a monument to westward expansion and stand as a symbol of the city's effort to revitalize its downtown community. But St. Joseph's was not part of that visionary enterprise. The church was now mired in a changing neighborhood. Parishioners were moving out. Small industries were moving in. And St. Joseph's appeared to be doomed, deteriorating bit by bit, both inside and out. Ralph Ellerbrock is the organist at St. Joseph's. He grew up in the neighborhood, which back then was still a bastion for the German community. He began playing the church organ here when he was 12.
In the original choir, when I started, all our Christmas carols were in German. We sang German Christmas carols because you had to be German when this church was first started. And it was still sort of the air now.
He also remembers how the neighborhood began to decline. The tenement housing units were replaced with truck terminals as the city tried to turn a dying area into a business center for the trucking industry. As the neighborhoods disintegrated, so did the church.
The tenement houses were all being torn down, and the truck lines were taking over around here. And the people just, I don't know, they just lost interest in it. And even though the Jesuits were still here at that time, we had maybe about 50 people in church, and then it'd start dwindling down. And then towards the end, when the Jesuits were here, there were maybe only 2 or 3 people in church, and there were maybe 2 of us up on the choir.
It was a standing joke at the time that there were more pigeons nesting in the church than there were parishioners. Pigeon droppings were everywhere. Those around then knew that it was simply a matter of time before St. Joseph's would be abandoned and probably torn down by the Archdiocese.
The bricks in the walls were showing. There were birds flying around. It was in bad shape. And actually the Pfeffer organ did not work at that time because it was so full of pigeon dirt. Oh, there were times when it was really run down that I thought that it was finished.
But in the late 70s, a group of 5 men would begin an effort that would ultimately save the church. There was Ted Wolford, an architect, Gene Boll, a woodworker, Charlie Finninger, the owner of a catering firm, Bob Voss, a St. Louis businessman, and Bob Ortega, a St. Louis photographer. Until they became involved with St. Joseph's, they had never met. They would form a friendship and an alliance that defied the odds.
I don't know how the 5 of us were appointed, but some force back there from St. Joseph or Jesus Christ had these 5 men put together, and we got it started.
They were the instruments, what some would call the heroes, who would begin a 20-year effort that would restore St. Joseph's to its original state. They would become the first members of a group they named the Shrine of St. Joseph's Friends. To a man, they could somehow see the church's inherent beauty. what it was at one time, and what it could be again. They had the vision to see beneath the debris and understand the true majesty and craftsmanship of the building. They had the vision to see what others could not.
I mean, there was a grandeur even in disrepair. It was still a very, very impressive place. I mean, you could see underneath the dirt and behind, and looking past broken plaster and sagging windows and things. There was something about it.
It was my faith in this place. I thought it was a magnificent church when it was crumbling down. And the church proper was. The walls were in bad shape, the ceilings. But it was something about the Shrine of St. Joseph that gets in your blood.
What I saw in this interior was an interior that said something back to me. That the proportions were elegant, were beautiful. The glass was unique, I thought. There were many beautiful details of carving and things. Somehow or other, as I said, it showed care and love and the things that a church should show.
I walked in, I saw it was like a color picture on off of my head. I just fell in love with the place. And being a woodworker too, all my life, I walked in and saw it like this, looked just like it looked. I had that picture. It was like a color picture in my head. I walked in and I saw a finished product.
The architecture was, the unique thing about it was it held together even in spite of every effort to tear it apart. I mean, the altars were spray painted with Zolatone, the worst paint in the world to try to get off. The color that was on them was carnival blues and pinks and stuff. I mean, if you began to analyze any piece, it was a disaster. But somehow or other, when it all got together, you didn't care. There was a sense of peace and an order to this building that was uncanny. The colors were terrible. It had a linoleum floor, battleship linoleum floor that clunked like mad. I mean, you know, it was kind of a yellow. The statues were broken, literally had dried out and cracked apart.
The statues throughout the church today are magnificent. All of them are carved out of wood. St. Peter Claver, St. Therese of Lisieux, the Guardian Angel, the Pietà. One of the most dramatic is the statue of St. Joseph as he was dying. At his side, Jesus and Mary. But when the Friends of St. Joseph began their work, this statue, and many of the others, were in utter disrepair. A chasm-like crack had all but destroyed the dying Joseph. Mill workers would eventually pull the dried-out parts back together and restore it to its original splendor.